Now, Ethiopian government officials are due to meet Tigrayan rebels in South Africa today to try to end a civil war that's been raging for 2 years. Led by the African Union, the talks are the first formal attempt to bring peace to the northern region. The Tigrayan rebels said their delegation had already arrived in South Africa. They said their priorities included the immediate cessation of hostilities in Tigray, the resumption of humanitarian aid, and the withdrawal of Eritrean troops allied to the Addis Ababa government.
It is important in part because the mediators have managed to get both parties to a negotiating table. To the extent that they've been able to get to that agreement is important. And it's likely then that we may perhaps see a ceasefire in the coming days.
Well, for more on those peace talks, let's speak now to the African affairs analyst and publisher of Africa Briefing, John Ofe-Ansah, who's been monitoring developments from London. He's got a network of correspondents across Africa, including Ethiopia and South Africa. John, thanks very much indeed for joining us. So the first formal peace talks to try to end 2 years of war in Ethiopia's Tigray region, beginning in South Africa. The two delegations are there. Does that give hope that they'll get around the same table?
Yes, I mean, it is very, very hopeful because it appears war fatigue, I think, is setting in on both sides. Now, like you said in your intro, I mean, the spokesman for the Tigrayan forces, I mean, and I quote him when he arrived in South Africa on Sunday. And I quote what he said. He said, pressing immediate cessation of hostilities, unfettered humanitarian access, and withdrawal of Eritrean forces. There can't be a military solution, end quote. So this tells you that the Tigrayans, now have been cowed into submission by the Ethiopian government forces. And on the other hand, the Ethiopian government is also listening to international pressure, giving to international pressure to go to a negotiating table with the Tigrayans to resolve the matter. So I believe there's a willingness, on both sides to sit down at the negotiating table and try to bring hostilities to an end.
Well, yes, broadly speaking, but I mean, the situation remains very tense indeed, and the hopes are dimmed by some of the things that we mentioned at the outset, the fact that there is still violence on the ground, and peace talks, you know this, John, don't tend to work while there's still fighting on the ground. I mean, so as you said, the first order of business has to be a ceasefire, but I mean, the Ethiopian government appears to have the advantage.
Yes, they do have the advantage. I mean, look, it's in the normal politics, in normal warfare, like when it comes to this stage, the stronger side or one side likes to arrive at the negotiating table, having the upper hand. And about a month or so ago, the Ethiopian government actually said that they were going to take over every government installation in Tigray. And I think they've done that. So they've got to a negotiating table now. And actually, the Tigrayan forces too, the Tigrayan government realize the precarious position they are in, right? Since about a year now, they've been starved of humanitarian assistance. People are fleeing, right? And I mean, the Tigrayans are in a very weak position, so they realize that, look, it's now time for them to sit down with the Ethiopian government and negotiate a peaceful solution to the conflict.
Okay, just very, very briefly, we've got about 20 seconds. Are these peace talks complicated by the presence of Eritrean troops?
It does, because, look, it's a conflict it's an internal conflict. And the fact that the Eritrean troops, because the Eritreans and the Tigrayans have a long history of hatred, of animosity. So I'm not sure peace will be achieved with the presence of Eritrean troops in Tigray. So for peace to be achieved, Eritrean troops need to be withdrawn or have to withdraw from Tigray before lasting peace could be achieved.
John, thanks very much indeed. John Ofe Ansah is an African affairs analyst and publisher of Africa Briefing.